Hello and welcome to the Star Singer podcast. My name is Tiffany, the creator of StarSinger.co and the Star Singer Green Room. And I'm so excited to be here with Robert Lunte. And he is the owner and founder of the Vocalist Studio, or TVS. TVS is an internationally recognized voice training school for singing, vocal techniques, public speaking, teacher training, and vocal-related events. Robert is also the author and producer of the critically acclaimed vocal instruction training online course and book, The 4 Pillars of Singing. The TVS method is practiced in 165 countries worldwide. His book has sold over 10,000 copies, and the online course is widely recognized as the most comprehensive home study program ever produced, enjoyed by an estimated 35,000 students worldwide. So I'd love for our listeners to get to know you a little bit better. Can you tell us a little bit about what's your background and how you got into all this, what school you went to, if you started singing at a young age? Just tell us a little bit about how you got started and involved in all this.
Sure. Thank you for the lovely introduction. So I'm a kid from the 80s, and I am sort of a rocker at heart, and I got to preface this by saying that the techniques that we train at the Vocalist Studio are not rock singing style training. I want to make sure that people don't get the wrong message right off the bat. Well, of course, we can train rock styles and any kind of styles, but what we do is we train vocal technique. This is like a gym for the voice. We train vocal athletes, so there's different vocalises and workouts and things that build the motor skills and the strength in the voice. Back to my story, and it's sort of relevant, I suppose, is I was, as a kid, very much inspired by male rock metal singers that could bridge to Passaggio, okay, smoothly, seamlessly, and then sing full, boomy, and belty in the head voice, okay, in a way that still excites me today, that's sort of heroic, masculine, big, boomy, and connected. Not only sing a high note, but do so smoothly, elegantly, with agility, and some chestiness to the sound color. Okay.
So you were interested in that at a young age?
Yeah.
How did you know how to describe it, or were you a singer yourself?
Well, I was a singer myself. I've been a singer for 35 years. At that time, I was a kid in a garage band, trying to sing these songs, right? Queensryche, Journey, Iron Maiden, Dream Theater, all these bands and artists that have, again, male singers that bridge through Passaggio, get in the head voice and sing really high and exciting without hurting themselves. One day, I tell the story in my book, I was listening to the radio, and I heard the first few bars of Queensryche's song from their EP, Queen of the Reich. Those of you that are not familiar with that, go check it out on YouTube. It's just amazing rock vocals. In fact, it was so interesting and so fantastic that it sort of redefined what rock male voices could do. Not just for me, but anybody that was in the industry at the time. I went on a research project as a kid to find out who his coach was, and discovered that it was Maestro David Kyle, who did a 35-year training stint here in Seattle, Washington. He also worked with Lane Staley from Alice in Chains, Chris Cornell, Ann Wilson from Heart, Ronnie Monroe, myself, and lots of other really great vocalists. And then I committed to that for about 12 years. Learned the techniques. And although what I teach today in the 4 Pillars of Singing is mostly my own innovations that we put together over the last 20 years of teaching students, there are still some elements inside the book and the course and the things that I do on a day-to-day basis that you could look back and say that's sort of legacy and inspired from Maestro David Kyle, such as training with a microphone, training with amplification, and also this putting a sort of a value at the ability to bridge and sing in the head voice. Like, that's a big deal. That's our mission statement. That's one of the main things that we're doing and that people are looking for when they come to me. And I went to school. I went to the University of Miami and studied classical music with Dr. David Alt, did all the French and German and Italian art song stuff for baritone voice. And that was sort of fun and academic and interesting, but my heart really is more on the pop and rock side and getting into that high screamy stuff.
So have you always wanted or envisioned yourself as a teacher of singing?
That's a great question. Actually, no. I spent 12 years in the technology world as a business development fellow that I had a company called Convergent IT that helped European companies get a sort of a beachhead in business and business development here in North America. And I've managed Microsoft and T-Mobile and things like this. But when the internet bubble in the late 90s crashed, the jobs became sort of hard to find. And all along the way, I've always been a singer, and I was in bands and having a good time as a singer. It was sort of maybe a sideshow or a fun thing to do. And after that, though, I needed to pay my bills. I needed a way to bring some dough in. So I thought, okay, well, let's do voice lessons for a while. And what started off as just sort of a fun side hustle on the weekends very quickly turned into something that I did not plan for, which was, wow, I'm really quite good at this. This is very intuitive for me. And students are coming back, and I've gone from 2 students to 4 students, from 4 students to 8, from 8 to 12, until I filled up the entire weekend, and then started teaching on the weekdays. It's just, so it's not something that I planned to do. I did not set out to become international voice coach that wrote a book at all. It's something that sort of found me. It sort of tapped me, and there was literally a point in my career where I was working a day job and teaching, and I thought, do I keep doing this, or do I really put this into overdrive and begin teaching full time? I took the risk. I decided to teach full time, wrote the book, got a couple Microsoft endorsements and some of the things that helped me to do speaking events and master classes, and just kept going. And it was something that I realized that, and I'm not like a religious dude, but I did realize that the universe, so to speak, was speaking to me and saying, this is what you should do. This is your thing that you should be doing. And so I kind of fully embraced it, and there's lots of fun history after that. But yeah, it's not something I planned to do. Not at all.
So you decided to go the teaching route instead of the performing route when you needed more money, or would you call that divine intervention as well?
I think it's a little bit of both. I have not stopped performing. I don't believe that a voice coach has to make a choice. I certainly there's only so much time in the day, and as voice coaches, we understand that there's it really takes up a lot of your time. But I've done my best to continue to produce original music. I do session work here in Seattle, Washington, and if you go out to YouTube, you can see some videos of me singing original songs that I've written and doing covers. I'm still very much interested in performing and recording and using my voice as a singer. I don't ever want to be the coach that doesn't sing or train or even get out and try to do things. Having said that, though, it's true. I did not push all my chips forward into performance. Sort of a conscious decision. I didn't do that, and looking back, I think that was the right thing to do, because I've capitalized on my talents as a coach. I have a product, a course, a teacher certification program. I got a business, and I can feed myself. I can make a living, and it's taken me around the world and other things that are fun and exciting, and like today's interview. And so I had to sort of make a choice, but I didn't totally let it go as far as performance is concerned. Yeah, but that's a good question. Yeah.
Cool. So what are you going to teach us about today?
What am I going to teach? What do you want to learn? What do you want to know? What would you like to know about the work that we do?
Well, we were talking about training vocal athletes and being able to bridge the gap in 45 to 90 days.
Yes. Okay. All right. Well, that's just great. All right. So in order to get somebody to have the ability to bridge the vocal break from the chest voice smoothly through the passaggio, which means passage in Italian, and once upon we get to the other side in the head voice, to make the head voice not sound sort of weak and falsetto-y and windy and have instability issues, but to have full connectivity issues. In order to have one seamless voice that will double your range and just really, honestly, just radically change your voice, we can do that. I hope I don't come off too salesy, but the fact of the matter is, if you train my program, I'll pretty much guarantee it. I'll guarantee you that if you do the training and you do the routines in this program, you'll be able to bridge seamlessly through both registers, sound beautiful, powerful, impressive in the head voice with no choking, no squeezing, no breaking, no instability issues. How do we do that? One, the first thing we do is we have to rehabilitate the voice. The speaking voice tends to be a bit fatiguing to the singing voice for most people, okay? So
are they not the same?
No, they are not the same.
Could you go into that a little bit more?
Absolutely, they are not the same. So speech mode, which I'm doing right now, if we talk about physical modes or Estelian modes, you might say, are physical configurations of the larynx, laryngeal positions that create unique acoustic effects and certain abilities, things that you can do with your voice per the physical mode. As a coach, I know that you know what I'm talking about, but this is part of the answer. One of these physical modes that we train in my program, that we educate teachers on, is called speech mode. It's what I'm doing right now, okay? The way the musculature, the tendons, and the the mechanism right now is working, and the way the phonetics are rolling out through my mouth, through my lips, the tongue movements, the lips, the way the phonetics are articulating, the physiology and the phonetics, the way that's happening right now is perfectly set for speech mode, okay? But this musculature position and the way I'm phonating my consonants and vowels in speech mode does not work for singing. It does not work for singing. Singing requires, among other things, articulation of complex melodic can you hear me?
Yes, I just lost you for a second.
Okay. All right. So singing takes the same mechanism and the same ability to articulate consonants and vowels and sort of throws them into an exotic high-performance arena, right? When we sing, we have to, well, bridge the passaggio. That's sort of tricky. We have to get into the head voice, which is about an octave or 2 octaves above where speech level sits. That's very tricky and confusing and requires a lot of special training. And vowels, the way we articulate vowels, the way we actively modify vowels, and the way we phonate certain consonants like plosives and what have you, are all radically different for singing compared to speech.
For our listeners, is that just simply because we are sustaining our voice and using it in a more athletic way when we're singing?
Precisely. Singing is an athletic endeavor, right? And especially training. Training for singing and singing is a sport. It's an athletic endeavor. It's very similar to, say, ice skating, gymnastics, doing a basketball layup, in the sense that it requires great motor skills and strength, but it is also judged by its aesthetic value. Dancing would be another good example. So, and I'm not just trying to sort of, be cheeky and, to come up with a cool metaphor. Quite literally, you have to work through repetition, the motor skills and the systems in here, the mechanism, in order to be able to bridge and connect, sing in the head voice, do vibrato, do distortion, do all the cool things and wonderful things that we all want to do in singing. You have to train. And training, working out, is really the big theme in here. This is what we do. It's what this 616-page book and the course that goes along with it do. It's what my students all over the world do every single day, and it's what my coaches also teach. I'm really big on training and working out. If you're not training and working out and building motor skills and strength of the mechanism to be able to do this, then what are you doing? What are you really putting your time and your money into? Coaching songs? Well, that's okay. That's okay.
Well, and it's not just your mechanism, you know, it's your whole body. It's common knowledge the body is the instrument. We need to use it at the optimum athletic level in order to get anything done.
You know, that's right. There's also respiration issues that we have to address, which are sort of in the extrinsic world. So in regards to your point, it's valid in that we have intrinsic musculature. That's referring to sort of the small, tiny stuff inside the larynx that we do a lot of work with in the vocal fold work and the thinning out and the different things that we learn to do with the vocal folds and the mechanism. Let's call that intrinsic work. And then there's extrinsic work. Sort of the bigger, broader muscles that we're a little bit more familiar with, the muscles we might work with sometimes out at the gym at 24/7. That would include respiration issues, working with the obliques, the diaphragm, the core for respiration. There's musculature in the lower back and in the neck that are designed for extrinsic anchoring, especially for belt singing that we work with. And you can see me, there's extrinsic anchoring the legs, buttocks, thighs. This sort of stuff is important and helpful for singing as well. So yes, agreed. Extrinsic musculature is also important. It's a full body experience. All of it
essential.
Is athletic. Yeah. Yep. Agreed. In my program, we have breathing exercises that are designed to build the strength and coordination of the diaphragm and the obliques and expand lung capacity for respiration. It's all extrinsic workouts. So we have some really neat intrinsic stuff that we work with, but there's also breathing workouts in here that handle the respiration system. And there's a few videos and lectures and discussions about posture and Alexander technique and all that sort of stuff. Bada bing, bada boom.
So what are the 4 pillars of singing? Or if you want, we can get back into the training and bridging the gap. When you say the bridging the gap, you're obviously talking about the head and the chest voice.
Yeah. Did I say bridging the gap?
You said bridging the gap.
No, I didn't. I did not rewind and listen to this. I did not say bridging the gap, but that's fine. I said bridging the passaggio.
Passaggio, yep.
Passaggio. It's Italian for passage. That's sort of fancy voice lesson talk for bridging the gap.
And why would you not use the word gap?
Because it's not proper vocal pedagogy. I don't want my students talking about hitting high notes, doing vocal slides, and bridging my gaps. I want students.
Why do you not
and listen, I'm answering your question. I want my students and my voice coaches to be speaking the right terms, because if you are speaking proper terminology in your training and teaching experience, you're able to communicate it better, and you're able to sort of internalize it and then execute better. People will get confused about what a gap means, and people will get confused about, for another example that's similar, hitting a high note, what that means. If, as a voice coach, I think it's safe to say, you don't want your students hitting anything, I'm presuming. We want them, so therefore, I don't want my students thinking about conceptualizing, internalizing auditory imagery around gaps, around hitting things or what have you. Okay, I want people should be using the proper terminology.
And this proper terminology is derived from science or just from an intelligibility in order to actually get the correct technique or actually make it work for them. Like you said, hitting a high note is obviously going to come up with ideas of pressure and force, which we obviously don't want.
That's the idea. That's the idea. It comes from the necessity of what I just said, what you just said. Certain terms, certain words have many meanings and many interpretations, and hitting things, gaps, and leaving students to sort of work with that puts them at risk of getting confused. Okay, but if they learn passaggio or sing a high note, which actually there's really no altitude involved in singing, so that's actually a bit confusing as well. But shifting formats, okay, then there's no wiggle room. There's no play to kind of go out and misunderstand what it means, and really it's just feel that it's my responsibility as an educator to make sure that my students and my coaches are using the proper terms. I just don't want my students or my coaches to be hacks.
So are your terms primarily based in science or bel canto singing, or both?
Both. I've got a shelf of books over here that are talking about passaggios and shifting formats. There's probably 25 books over here from the greatest authors in the world.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that is scientific. Looking at a lot of science books right now over there. Yeah, but both.
So let's talk a little bit about time frame. Okay. You have a time frame of 45 to 90 days, and let's be real, I'm sure you've worked with people who just don't want to put in the time. What do you have to say about that?
Wow. What I have to say about that is, thanks for coming. Sorry it didn't work out for you. Actually, sorry that you did not work out for it. Or maybe it didn't work out for you. Maybe you don't like it. Some people don't like vocal training. The idea of being a singer and a star and all that sounds really great. And then when they realize, oh, I actually have to train and work at this. I have to practice and be athletic and make time every day to warm up and do these things that Robert and his coaches are advising me to do. That's not fun. I'm out. I mean, what can we say? Thanks for coming. I'm not here to babysit people. It's not what I do. I'm here to help people that are open to taking the suggestions and the training that we've created that works. But this is an opportunity to make a really important point. It's a team effort, isn't it? It's a team effort. Students have to train. I like to say, based on the individual, 30 to 120 minutes per session, 3 to 6 days a week. Based on the individual, about 45 to 90 days of training. The routines prescribed in this program will help most people to bridge smoothly one voice from the chest voice through the passaggio into the head voice and sing with great agility and freedom and fun. And that's answering your other question that you asked me. You asked me about the 8 steps in 45 days, and we didn't actually get through them all, but the last bullet through a list of things that people need to do that I'm recommending is 30 to 120 minutes per session, 3 to 6 days a week, 45 to 90 days. And you'll bridge and connect.
So 120 minutes, that sounds like a lot for a beginner or maybe someone who is using technique poorly. I mean, it could be difficult on the voice.
That's a good point. Yeah, it could be. If you're not doing our warm-ups in the program correctly, namely, if the warm-ups are you're resonating sort of in the throat and you're not lifting that resonance up into the forward palate, into sort of maskier forward positions. And if students are, we're geeking out a little bit here, but if students are failing to engage cry vocal mode, which thins out the vocal folds, which increases vocal fold compression, it also increases medial compression, and it removes pharyngeal constriction. If students are not engaging other things as well, but I would say, to give you a quick answer, vocal cry mode, and they're not working on resonating in the upper vocal tract and getting forward in the resonating, simply with step 2 in my 8-step program that you're referring to, which is our warm-up routines, they're not doing that, yeah, it'll get grindy and pushy and choky, and they'll have problems.
Could you explain a little bit about what cry mode is or what it might allude to? Because as we talked about before, there's a lot of different terminology that people use. Is there a similar term that someone else might use for cry mode, or could you explain a little bit more about what this is?
Yeah, I certainly can. So we talked a bit about speech mode earlier, and I was referring to a set of physical vocal modes, laryngeal positions that create unique acoustic effects and abilities to maneuver in unique ways for the voice, the mechanism positions. One such position is called cry vocal mode. And I'll take this opportunity to say that in 20 years of training students, there's been a lot of really powerful vocal techniques that have transformed my voice and students' voices. But out of those, let's say those top 6 things that were just life-changing techniques, cry vocal mode might be the most impressive. It might be the most exciting. It's up there with vowels and resonation, so important. So, answering your question.
So what exactly is it? Yes,
yeah.
You're going.
Cry mode. Cry mode is a physical mode that literally puts the larynx into a position that is the same position when we're emotionally sad and we cry. That's why we call it cry mode. When babies cry, and for the sake of this conversation, let's understand that they're experts at this, and they are. Babies cry. They do so because it's an emergency. They need help. And what nature has done nature has built in sort of an instinctive reflex movement, this position in the larynx that we're talking about, that enables babies to amplify really high frequencies, to go super high and get loud, okay, without hurting themselves. And you and me, adults, if we're sad enough, okay? So it's this reflex that is used for emergencies to get people's attention. Now, what if we arbitrarily, were, through practice and training, able to put our larynx into this laryngeal, our mechanism, into this position? We're not emotionally sad, but sort of fake the body in a sense and put our larynx into this position. Would we as singers be able to sing high notes and amplify those high notes without pushing and choking and hurting ourselves? The answer is profoundly yes. It's absolutely amazing. Here's what cry mode does for you. 1, cry mode elongates the vocal folds, which increases vocal fold compression, increases the measurement of compression on the vocal folds. Anytime you get more vocal fold compression on when you're singing, that's a great thing. Singers need specialized high-performance vocal fold compression abilities and motor skills. 2, vocal cry mode increases medial compression. So not just elongation and the force of closure of adduction, but also the surface area. The actual, so I left vocal fold, right vocal fold. Right now, my vocal folds are oscillating on the edges. Not really not my preference, but with vocal cry mode, suddenly I begin to oscillate on the full surface area of the vocal folds, okay? I'm getting more close quotient. I'm getting more fat connectivity, more surface area connectivity. Now, if I have this higher medial compression working for me from chest voice to head voice, through the passaggio into the head voice, and I maintain this higher close quotient medial compression, then that's one of the most important things that gives the voice a chesty color. It's one of the things that makes head voice singing sound more chesty and more F1H2. Okay.
So what you're talking about.
3, cry mode removes pharyngeal constriction. That's important. Sorry to interrupt, but that's important that we get this out. So pushing, choking, squeezing, constriction, all of that stuff, suddenly, like 90% of it melts away. So you're getting better compression, you're getting more close quotient on your vocal folds, and squeezing and pushing goes away.
Well, of course. If you're already compressed, you don't need to feel like you need to squeeze or push because you're already phonating. It's already high, it's already powerful.
Okay. Well, vocal fold, you can get great vocal fold compression and still be squeezing and still be choking and engaging the constrictors.
How would that happen? Too much air pressure? Or is it more of a glottis, like where the glottis like just comes together too hard because cricothyroids are like overlapping or something like that?
Well,
there's a lot of different ways. We know that's bad.
Yeah, that was my answer. That was going to be my answer. Is there's a lot of different ways that we get constriction. There's a lot of things that can happen that can create constriction. One of them is lack of thinning out and getting that compression through cry mode. That's probably the first thing. 2, as you go higher in frequency, we have to adjust the formant and the resonance and stuff. So failing to actively modify a vowel properly, you get buffering in the acoustic elements of singing. So that can also feedback and create constriction. Allowing resonance to sort of fall back to the soft palate instead of holding it and keeping it up into what we call an edging position or a forward hard palate position can create constriction. And gosh, probably 4 or 5 other things.
Yeah. So would you say that cry mode is similar to what others may call mixed belt?
No.
How so?
Cry mode is
not rather.
Cry mode is a physical mode. It's a configuration that you practice. You learn how to get in to engage that reflex, and then you sing through it. Okay, just like vocal twang or vocal distortion or sob mode or opera mode. It's a physical mode. It's a technique that you practice. Belting in mixed voice is a compound concept that is referring to the physical mode, belting, okay, inside resonance that sits sort of between chest voice and head voice in a mixed resonance. So that's sort of you're describing sort of an action as opposed to an individual specific technique idea.
Let me re-ask the question. Is it, to the listener, is it very similar, but to the singer, there may be a different approach?
I'm sorry, don't understand your question. Let's try again.
If I hear cry mode and I hear a mixed belt, I might, as a listener, feel like they're the same thing. But as a singer, I might know that their approach is a little bit different.
As a singer, a trained singer, and a trained coach with good ears, yes, you very well might recognize that they're different. But mixed belt is, I think what you're referring to, is just a belt voice high into the mixed resonant position. It's great stuff, actually. And in order to do that well, you have to get into cry mode. You have to put the larynx into the platform and the position for singing. Look, make no mistake, great singing is, in addition to some other important things like vowels and what have you, includes command and control of the cry reflex. It's profound. It's profound. And I'm not even suggesting that cry vocal mode is a technique we add to the singing for us to get better, that you're going to learn a technique called cry vocal mode that you're going to add to your singing. That's not what I'm suggesting. Cry vocal mode is the singing voice. It is the platform for singing. Pretty much all of it. Thin out the vocal folds, medial compression, remove constriction. That's what singers need. Okay? So when you get into that position, the mixed voice belting you're referring to will work better. Opera singing will work better. The voiced over work, character voicing will work better. Rock and roll distortion techniques that we teach as well work better. It's one of the first things that if you're a rocker and you want to learn just distortion techniques, it's one of the first things you learn how to do is get into cry mode. We need it for just about everything that we're doing for singing, including belts.
So to me, it sounds like what you may be describing is just good technique, but a tangible way for people to understand that. And you're using cry mode as a initial foundational setup to then bridge out into other different modes or genres, if you will.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think you read that well. The book and the course and sort of what I do is I'm good at explaining the abstract. And then, good coaches, all good coaches are good at that. But that's sort of what you and I are doing. You and I are kind of talking shop a little bit and geeking out on the technique and stuff, and your listeners will probably be able to track us and follow this. But yeah, that's essentially my main job, or one of my main purposes, is to be able to take the abstract and find ways to explain it that the average guy or students can grasp, so that they can then conceptualize it, understand it, internalize it, and then turn that around and execute it physically with 30 to 120 days, 3 to 6 days a week, and 45 to 90 days of practice. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. No, you're right. No, you're reading me correctly. That's it. Yeah.
Excellent.
But it's interesting because I find myself in a dilemma sometimes, because it can get a little bit techy and it can get a little bit geeky and vocal technique-ish and stuff. And not everybody. There's a lot of people, a lot of students, as you know, that are like really into it, and voice coaches tend to enjoy it. But there's also a crowd of people where eyes start glazing over. You start losing folks, and it's a bit frustrating as a coach that cares about their students, because like it would be really nice to go, okay, oh, you know what, to heck with it, to heck with all this stuff. I'm not going to continue explaining this to you. Cry mode and the 3 things that cry mode does for you and all these kinds of things, and let's just call it the gap. And let's not talk about cry mode, because I can tell I'm losing you. I can tell that your eyes are glazing over and this is boring you to death. I'd like to be able to have that option, maybe, to go walk away from that, but I can't. Because there are some basic elements that students have to have. We're not asking them to be formant experts. We're not asking them to be phonetics experts. We're not asking them to be, level 10 Estelian. But we want students do, when they sign up for this, they do need to understand some basics about physical modes, like cry mode, some real basics about what certain consonants can do for your voice, and some basics about onsets and how we start notes, and some basics about vowels and resonance and stuff. So a voice student has to know that when they sign up, we're not asking them to get a doctorate at this stuff or even be a voice coach, but you do have to kind of understand, you know, sort of a fundamental, let's call it a yellow belt level of understanding of the things that we teach to get the results that they want.
Well, yeah, and I think that one of the things that many singers struggle with is the different terminology and the way people use different terminology because it is abstract.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is experience-based. Once you experience it, it starts to make a little bit more sense.
Yeah.
And you can start to use a description and put it into your body. I think so many people spend so much time trying to, people who are beginning singers, they try to learn on the internet and they just digest all of this information, but don't actually try anything. So it just all becomes very confusing and like a big jumble of information with no experience behind it to relate to.
You are 110% correct about that. And not only no experience, and let's say experience sort of roughly translates to kinesthetics, right? Learning by doing, which you and I understand is so important in becoming a better singer. You have to feel it. You know, I call them these guys that sit out on YouTube and just look for free vocal tips, you know, the free vocal tip collectors, the free vocal tip collectors out there, and there's many of them. Don't even get me started. Don't get me started on this because I care about singers, but you're absolutely right. You
can go for it if you want.
Yeah, well, it's just not going to get you anywhere. You know, YouTube is, let's be honest, it's maybe, you know, it can be entertaining, and okay, a tip might give you an aha moment. Oh, okay, I get that, and I think I can give you a few aha moments, but that's not vocal training. And that's not, and to your point, that's not going to make you a better singer. That's not going to help you to do the thing that we all want to be able to do, which is to bridge and connect and get in the head voice, expand our range, and not constrict and push and sound beautiful and have lovely resonating vowels and all of this.
And let's be real, Michael Jordan didn't sit on YouTube trying to learn how to play basketball.
That's right.
That's assuming YouTube was available at that time, but
yeah,
he actually did it.
Yeah, you and I are not teaching YouTube tip collectors. That's one way of looking at it. You might start off that way, but as soon as you're ready to get serious and make some time to train and practice, then I'm here to embrace you, as is Tiffany and other good coaches. That's my message to students out there. YouTube, fine, great. I mean, I have YouTube videos, but they're really sort of designed to be things to pique your interest. And there's performance videos, and there's testimonial videos, and there's sort of some fun, kooky stuff out there that's just for entertainment. But that's not the training. That's not what we're doing in here.
So where can we find you and learn more about you?
Oh, go to thevocaliststudio.com. That's my website, and out there you can find more information about the book and the online course and private lessons. I also have and offer a light version of the full course that's out at my website at Udemy. So Udemy is this marketplace for courses, and there's a light version of my course out there. So it's a good way to get started for a less or sort of smaller investment. And then if you're digging that, and that's great, and you're having fun with that and you're making progress, I invite you to take a look at the full enchilada, the full program that I developed that sits out at my website. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. And I know that the listeners are really going to appreciate your perspective and your description of the abstract. And yeah, we really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. You're sweet, and I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to your audience. And this was fun. Thank you.